Hi, I'm Brent Johnson, and today I'm in Duxbury, Massachusetts. I'm at the First Parish Unitarian, and with me is Edwin Swanborn, and we're sitting here at the console of a W.B.D. Simmons organ, correct?
Correct.
When was this organ originally built?
Originally in 1853,
1850. Okay.
which was 13 years after this building went up.
Oh, okay.
This structure we're in is an 1840 Greek Revival classic New England meeting house,
Okay.
and it's the fourth building in the history of the church. We have an unbroken line of ministers from 1632,
Wow.
and this is there were originally two earlier buildings on another site in town that eventually they grew out of, and then a third meeting house went up on this site in the 1780s. And it was a fine structure, but the town was doing very well for itself in the shipbuilding and trading enterprises, and they wanted to flaunt their wealth, and they decided to tear down a perfectly fine meeting house and build this 1840 structure which was high style of that time, and they wanted to show off just a bit.
So,
And
all
then
right.
and then it took them another 13 years to finally get around to building the organ. And one of the stories about that is that then the women of the church started a summer fair, which has carried on ever since to this day. And they raised enough money in their efforts to pay for the organ, and there was something left over, and so they put a wrought iron fence around the adjacent cemetery. So they did quite well for
They did,
themselves,
yeah.
and as I say, that tradition has carried on in an unbroken fashion, despite the pandemic and all that.
Yeah, wonderful.
So this instrument went up in 1853, built by William Benjamin Dearborn Simmons,
Okay.
a Boston builder, competing with the Hook brothers of that era. It was smaller than what you see today. The towers you see on either side with the three pipes, those have been added in this most recent restoration and enlargement. But
Well, we should talk about that because the organ is not completely original.
That's right.
There was some work that was done before.
That's right. It
what
went through
happened
an earlier restoration in 1967, also by the Andover Organ Company, which did the most recent one in 2017. At that point in the first restoration, they left pretty much the Great Division intact, but for a few modifications. They had to remove a stop to make way for a mixture, which the instrument never had. And so they took out this clarabella, this lovely little flute stop. And it would have been lost, but someone had the foresight to store it away
Oh, that's good.
someplace,
So you've got it back.
and it made its way ultimately to a little closet up here in the loft, where it gathered dust for 50 years, but was still perfectly intact. And so in this more recent restoration in 2017, the Andover Organ Company managed to put it back to where it belonged.
that's wonderful.
We then took a stop, a Dulciana stop, which we moved up to the Swell. And in this restoration, they enlarged the Swell division with a chest and added a few more stops. But the really miraculous thing is Andover Organ Company has made a real specialty of this era instrument, the sort of the Boston School of builders, and they have had stored away many instruments that they saved over the years, including several Simmons organs. And when we were looking for new stops to populate a larger chest, they had in their inventory stored away several Simmons stops that were built within 1 year
Really?
of this instrument. And in fact, the enlarged chest that we put up in the Swell was also a Simmons chest, again within about a year of this instrument. So
even though it was expanded with period.
that's
and
right, and
builder
which is something we
parts. That's-
rarely ever
yeah.
manage to do in restorations.
Indeed.
We tend to modernize things, bring in all kinds of new stops, and so the goal here was to really stay within the mold of William Simmons and to represent him well. There might have been all kinds of other things, bells and whistles we could have added, but at least when you come to see this instrument, you're seeing what he may very well have built if the church had the money to build a larger instrument at that time. So the night horn was one of the stops they had saved. I should probably start from the beginning. As I said, the grate was largely intact.
Yeah, let's hear I want to hear the original stuff, and then we can talk about what we've changed and what's been added.
Let me then focus on the grate. So everything you see here, the facade pipes within the confines of the new towers are all original.
Oh, okay.
So you can see how wonderfully they matched those pipes with new pipes, which are now cello pipes added to the pedals.
Okay.
The original pedals, well, first of all, it was a smaller pedal board, only 17 notes, and it had just this lone sous-bass. That's all. That's the bottom of the instrument.
Okay.
In 1853, up until the earlier restoration in 1967, when they added a Palmer stop, which we don't have now. We took that out. It was a Palmer. It is a flue pipe which accentuates the 12th pitch overtone
sound.
Yeah, so it gives you a kind of a reedy sound, much more gentle than a true reed. And I actually love the stop, and I do miss it, but it wasn't part of the Simmons mold, so we sacrificed that, and it was recut and turned into a quint, and which gives you more bottom to the pedal. So it was a nice reuse of that stop. And then also in 67 and still here today is this 4-foot choral bass, which is nice to do a cantus firmus in the bass if it's called for. And so we have a 16, and now we added this cello and the 4-foot choral bass.
I'd like to hear the cello by itself, just to hear about this new addition.
Yeah, and that's again, 6 of those you see in the tower's facade, and the rest inside. Oh, it's a little problem winding today.
So that's our pedal division then.
And then finally we added a passoun, a trombone, to which Simmons was known to have utilized in some of his bigger instruments, and we scaled this down. There were many options. In fact, I went out and saw Simmons with a passoun, which was really very, very large. It was wonderful. It would have been one of those things you'd pull on for the last 2 bars of a big finish to a piece, but you couldn't use it a lot throughout the course of a piece. So we chose to just scale it down, and it's getting a little closer to a bassoon perhaps, but it does function in the rest of the ensembles. Simmons was known for a gentler kind of voicing, and which is part of his character. must have said something about his personality that we don't know. But and so we didn't attempt to change that. And in fact, some of the stops that were added in the 67 restoration, we even voiced them down a bit more, so they blended better with the originals. And so the goal here was to really represent a Simmons instrument, so people in the future with interest in historic instruments can come and experience
they're getting the real
this. It's not an organ built by this person, and this person, and so that the original is no longer recognizable. So anyway, that trombone. Oops, if I would put it on, maybe with the. So it's
gives you some
it's
rumble, but it's not.
It's a full enough sound
overpowering.
because given our acoustic, we have a wonderful acoustic here. So it's just right to balance the rest of the instrument, and anything you might feel it lacks up here, the room makes up for it.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, let's go to the great division now and hear some of the original sounds now.
So the bottom of that, the open diapason, these pipes in the facade that you see within the confines of those towers. So sweet, gentle.
Yeah, it's
and,
not too in your face, even though it's right here. It's still a nice singing, gentle sound.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the principle again, not like big monstrous German principles, but. And then you start, well, of course, then completing the chorus has a 12th and a 15th, all original Simmons. So. And then finally the mixture. And of course, the mixture was added in 67. It was a much brighter one at that point. The goal then was to kind of Baroquify things a bit, and so that was more brilliant. I loved it, but again, it didn't really match the Simmons ideal, so it was toned down a little bit. So, and of course that's just with the diapasons and the principal stops. But now you can thicken it up with the stop diapason. And let me show you those first. This stop diapason at the 8-foot is actually a chimney flute, which matches this chimney flute at the 4-foot pitch.
Okay.
So, and then this, oops, yeah. And then together there. I always love this because the 4-foot chimney flute is right up front here.
I can see it in there.
Speaks right in your face. It's great to practice on because it spits at you.
Yeah, it's so clear.
A little bit, and it's so clear. And any spitting up here is mitigated by the room. So
Yeah, it's not overly so, but it's just a nice clear sound with the 8 and the 4 together. I really like that.
yeah, and then the biggest accomplishment what I really appreciate is that we never lost this Clarabella, this 8-foot open flute, but it doesn't go beyond the tenor, the tenor F.
Yeah, it's so nice to have that contrasting flute, though.
Yeah, and they go so well together too.
Yeah, they do. It's amazing.
So you can make a nice solo effect of that against something. beautiful
Yeah,
sound.
very nice. So then you can add those flutes to your principal chorus to even get a little.
Yeah, and then so we're back where we started there with that chorus. You're shy of the mixture. Started to build that up. And then you add the 4-foot. That really fleshes it out. But again, because it's right in your face.
Yeah, it's bright, but not too loud there. It still maintains some gentleness, even with that full chorus.
Exactly. And then we took, like I said, we took some of the bite out of the mixture. So.
Lovely.
So that's the grade, and then of course the trumpet. Let me just show it to you with just only a little bit of support. And then of course adding on top, starting with the mix.
It's nicely balanced. Now, was the trumpet original, or is that added at some point?
Yeah, that was well, parts of it were original. It had to be fleshed out. In fact, one of the big reasons for the 67 restoration, of course, lots of things were failing. It had been over 100 years since any significant work was done. But the original chest only went down to tenor F. Oh. I mean, all the stops but for this one stop diapason. Okay. That's the only one that completed the full width of the keyboard. And so everything else was just allowed for some modest solo effects, accompanied by the grate, which very much the style of that day. And so that was removed. Little add-on story. It was removed and put in the cellar of the church. I discovered it in the 1970s. I've been here since 1969. Oh, okay. And I discovered this chest and thought we could build a little continuo instrument around it. And so an attempt was made, but it didn't quite work out. We did come up with a little instrument. Later on, if your camera goes down to the floor, you can see we do have a positive instrument down there, which was supposed to have been built around, at least it was inspired by the chest that we took out of this, but it was unfortunate that we couldn't recycle that. I'm a recycler by nature, so.
A lot of organ people are.
Yeah. So anyhow, they put in then another chest, which was from a later instrument. It was never quite right for this. It was what was available. It was sort of historic, but not really in the Simmons mold. So, but it did allow us to fill out the rest of those stops. But in the more recent restoration, we now have a real Simmons chest, and room to expand. It was actually a great chest that was put up into the swell. Oh. And so it had more room to expand. So we were able to add all kinds of other things. So nothing but this lone stop diapason, and I think parts of the oboe. If there's anybody here who disagrees with that,
we'll confirm that later.
We can confirm that later before I put my foot in my mouth any deeper. So in the 67 restoration, we had a sesquialtra, Nazard and the Tierce, which was one compound stop. Okay. In this restoration, I asked that they be split so we could create a chorus between the stop diapason. Oh, and also we added an open diapason, which the original one was lost in the 67 restoration. There was only this lone, lovely flute. that was the bottom of the swell. But now we have a real open diapason, but it is boxed, so it doesn't sound that large. And let me just go from there. Then this Dulciana is original to the grate.
Oh, okay.
And so that's the one we moved up to make room to return the Clarabella to its original home. And so that this is the quiet, it's the only string stop on the instruments. Otherwise it's diapasons and flutes and just the two reeds, well, trumpet on the grate, oboe on the swell, and now the trombone in the pedal.
Okay.
But now this lovely Dulciana. Very sweet.
Yeah, lovely.
And it blends nicely with the stop diapason. And then this night horn, which is so gentle, it's got rather a boxy sound. I don't know if Andover would like me to describe it that way, but and that's an original Simmons, not original to this instrument, but built within a year of this instrument. And that actually goes nicely with the Dulciana. You wouldn't expect it, but it creates a, this is where this is the boxy element that I hear. And then of course you can add the stop diapason to that.
It's just also gentle, though, in there.
Exactly. Well, that is the first word that comes to mind when you talk about Simmons.
Yeah.
And so the instrument really needs an acoustic like this to really come to life. And so then you can build that then on top of this newer Simmons, still Simmons, but from another instrument, open diapason, a principal, likewise Simmons. Getting tired of D major. And you flesh that out a little bit with the stop diapason. Oops, I've slipped back into D major again. And then, as I said, the Nazard and the Tierce were a sesquialtra added in 1967, but voiced to blend here. So we can create, well, it's kind of a weak cornet here with the stop diapason on the bottom. So 1, 2, 3. So we needed a 4. You can have the night horn. Or now you can swap out the open diapason and maybe the principal.
Mutations work with both of them there. That's nice.
And then a mixture was added, something the instrument never had. So it if you're in the box, it's really quite large. So.
Yeah, but it's, again, still just a gentle chorus there. It doesn't
gentle is always the word.
overpower anywhere.
And then the oboe. You start to add a little flute, or even a little night horn. or with this stop die pays an 8-foot. Sometimes I'll throw in the Nazard for a little reedy. Again, it's very gentle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice how well everything blends with any other stop. Any combination works.
I mean, Andover really is wonderful like that. I mean, they understand this era.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost as if they had lived in that era, but they've dealt with so many instruments of this period that they really have a sense for it.
And we do have a tremulant in the swell.
Yeah, a very gentle one. I like a nice slow tremolo.
Just very gentle. Oh, well, this is just wonderful to hear. All of these amazing sounds that all work together so well, and sounds of the 19th century.
Exactly.
Even the things that aren't have been blended in so perfectly that it just all works really well.
Oh, just the casework that I have to give credit to what they accomplished here, because they took all the features, all the sort of architectural features, all the wonderful moldings, a few cobwebs, and expanded upon them to create the towers on the side. The original sides of the case were then pushed outward, so the paneling on the edges are original.
But everything in between.
Everything in between.
Outside. I have to say, when I walked in, it just looks like it's how it was built.
Exactly.
There's no apparent evidence that these are new. Because the whole case has been refinished, of course, so it all looks kind of new.
Yeah.
But
and the finish, the original instrument was sort of a faux rosewood like this, but you wouldn't have known it. It had turned chocolate brown over the years. And maybe Matthew will show you when you go around the side. We did keep one panel in the original, mainly because it's full. Over on that side is a little well where the organ was pumped by hand, and the little choir boys that got stuck over there for the course of the service got bored, and they take out their penknives and they put their initials in the side case. I mean, we had to preserve those, because once in a long while somebody will come back and visit, and they'll say, "That was my grandfather back in 1920." You know, so we had to preserve
have to keep that kind of stuff.
We had to preserve that.
Well, Matthew Bellocchio from Andover is here, and he's going to take us around, and we're going to look and see, and he'll tell us a little bit about how they what happened here with this instrument.
He knows the innards better than I do.
In 1967, Andover did some major modifications to this Simmons organ, as was the philosophy in the time. That was at the height of the organ reform movement, and everybody wanted to play Bach and pre-Bach music on organ. So Andover, from the Tom Byers and Charlie Fisk era, looked upon old organs as a canvas which could be overpainted. So the swell was altered, made full compass with a cornet decomposé and a different oboe. And then the pedal had, the Borden was augmented with an 8-foot Palmer and a 4-foot choral bass, and I guess good for playing trio sonatas. And that's how the organ was for 50 years. In 2017, plans finally came to fruition to alter the organ in a more sympathetic way, because in the 60s it became a mixed marriage of Simmons and Neo-Baroque. And we were so lucky to have the opportunity to put things right. So the swell was basically changed. We had in stock an actual Simmons chest from a church that had been removed from the Cape, and also Simmons pipework that was built just a year from this instrument, which had been removed from a Simmons organ in Gloucester that was no longer used, and we had in storage. So we augmented the swell with a Simmons chest and mostly Simmons pipework. And the Sleeping Beauty story is that the Clarabella, which had been taken out and was in storage for 50 years, was put back in the organ. So the Clarabella had a happy ending. We were very pleased with this. The case was expanded from 3 sections to 5, and we were very careful in planning that. We wanted it to look like it had always been here, because the pedal was just basically a small 3-stop chest at the back, and the pedal now is C and C sharp chests in the outer towers. It received a reed and an 8-foot principal, new wind chests, and the winding was modified too, additional winding for the pedal. So we needed to expand it. One early concept had separate pedal towers, but then we reconsidered that. We thought, no, why not expand it and make it look period? So I like to say that we changed the look of the organ from a Simmons to a Stevens, because George Stevens was famous for his 5-sectional Greek revival cases. But the end result is that it looks good in the room. Mary Lou Davis, the painted decoration conservator that we have worked with on numerous projects, did a fabulous job here. She faux grained the entire case to imitate rosewood, and then gold leafed the facade pipes and put a glaze on them to soften the effect. So it looks very period. And the story that Ed likes to tell, and I like to tell, is that the Boston organist Brian Jones, who was a music director at Trinity Church in Boston, grew up in Duxbury and took lessons on this organ under Jimmy Ingalls, who was the organist up until the rebuilding in 1967. He was very concerned about our expanding the case and changing it. He says, "Oh, but it looks so brave, that little case in the gallery." Well, the first time he came in from the front, and apparently he just stood there with his mouth open, looking and looking. And finally he said, "It looks like it's always been here." And that, to us, was the highest compliment. We always feel that an organ, be it new or rebuilt or renovated, should be at home visually and acoustically with its surroundings. This is a very historic parish. This was the second town founded in the Plymouth colony, and this organ dates back to 1853. So it's very highly significant. The interior of the church, the instrument, so that we're very pleased that the instrument still looks like it's always been here, even in its expanded state. Here we have the before and after. This is what the case looked like before Mary Lou worked her fake graining magic. The original fake grain paint had darkened with age, and you can see where the pump boys carved their initials. So here's the old drab brown, here's the the refinished or new with the faux rosewood graining on the casework. Here's one of the two new pedal chests, the CNC sharp chest. As you can see, the pipes actually have room. Well, the organ has a proper pedal division, and the pipes have proper room to speak. The reed and the 8-foot violoncello, which is actually like a principal, are new. And this is a Simmons wind chest. It was a great chest on an organ on Cape Cod, and now it has been repurposed as the Swell chest. It has the original inset bone, as Simmons did, but with new action. We're looking at the Swell. I'm going to go behind and tell you what you're looking at. Yeah, so the organ, the Swell box has LED lighting. Not from 1853. The oboe is 19th century. That was supplied by Andover in 1967, because the previous Simmons hautboy was just, I think, tenor F. This was traditional in the early Andovers. The interior of Swell boxes was painted a blue, Andover blue. And some of Charles Fisk's organs after he left Andover also have that blue.
Edwin, thank you so much for the demonstration. This has been amazing to hear. I think this is the only Simmons organ original that has original pipe organ in it that I've heard. So it's been kind of educational.
We are ready.
To see it preserved here and to see it expanded and still used, maintaining its character. It's just fantastic. So thank you for all of that, and thank you for keeping guard over this organ for so long and making sure it gets played well.
And come visit us.
Indeed. We'll put a link to the website down below. So the church has a wonderful website where you can find information about the organ as well as, the congregation. So that'll be down below in the description. And if while you're down there, if you like the video, please give us a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed to our videos, and we'll have more coming out very soon. I want to thank Matthew Bellocchio from Andover and Andover Organ for helping make all this happen. Andover is a member of APOBA, the Associated Pipe Organ Builders of America, and they do from time to time help us make these videos. So our thanks to APOBA, and our thanks to our sponsors who make this possible. We get out and travel to places like Duxbury because of all of your help. So if you'd like to become a sponsor, you can do that by going to organ.media and clicking on support. Until our next videos are out, though, remember you can find streaming classical organ music on our 3 stations, organlive.com, Positively Baroque, and The Organ Experience. Thank you again, Edwin. This has been an education.
Most welcome.
And
thank you for coming.
Until our next video is out, I'm Brent Johnson. Thank you for watching.